Hello there and welcome to Black Bear Atheist. Today we're going to check out more of Impact Video Ministries. I did one video on him before. I hope I already upload that. If I haven't, I apologize. I'm going to upload it soon. Today he's going to answer the who created God question. That's the title of the video and we're just going to dig into it. I think this will be very interesting. His animation is very engaging.
Hey everyone, in this video, we're going to be answering the question, who created...
Oh, don't get me wrong, it doesn't make any sense. I'm just saying his animation is very, very nice. I wish I could animate, but I can't.
God. You see, many Christians assert the fact that God created everything. He created the land, the seas, the animals, the stars in the sky.
I was gonna let that slide, but heck no. Assert the fact? You first have to actually prove that. That's not a fact. Like, where do they... You see, these same people will say the education system today that we have in America is terrible. They will say this because their Bible is not taught at schools. I would say agree with the point that the education system today in America needs improvement, but not because of their dumb reasoning, but because of this. People don't know what a good source actually is. They don't understand what makes a source good or bad. So because this 2,000-year-old Bible says Jesus resurrected from the dead, all of a sudden people can apparently resurrect from the dead. Like, the Bible is not a good source for historical, well, to an extent, to talk about the cultural aspect of what was really going on during Jesus' time, but not really the event, because sometimes they even lie about that. So you can't even trust the Bible to give detailed historical events, even after it already happened and they're writing like it happened before. They still fail or depicting actual historical events. So, like, the Bible is not a good source, and people don't know that. Apparently, this guy thinks it's a fact that God created everything, when there's no evidence for that. Like, what is his source? The Bible.
And people with their souls and hearts. However, if everything we see had a beginning or a cause for its existence, shouldn't God also need a cause for his existence? I mean...
No, apparently no. That's the answer that you're gonna give. We already know how this is gonna end. I just wanna see how he's going to dance around, if you know what I mean. There's a bunch of dances in the world, but like, the interesting thing isn't the fact that they're dancing, it's how they're dancing. So I'm gonna see how he dances around the question and really just say something that's like just really just stupid. Like, if everything if your idea is that the universe is so complex that it just can pop into existence from the Big Bang, God has to be the one to make it. We're so complex that God has to be the one that design us. Yes, design us all. Then you gotta understand that God, you're putting something more complex on the universe and us by putting God over it. And then we have to put something over that because that's the line that's the logic that you already set up. So if God is the one that made the universe, then someone had to make God. It's just infinite regress based on this logic. That's what we end up with.
Doesn't this sound a little too convenient for Christians? Look at this conversation, for example. Jimmy here says, God created everything. And Billy says, okay, cool, but who created God? And Jimmy's response, well, everything needs a cause for its existence, but not God, because he was always there. And that doesn't sit well with a lot of people. It seems as though some Christians shut off their minds and stopped thinking about the origin of life because they automatically assume God was just always there. So in an effort to dive into this topic,
In the last video, he did the same thing. Oh, Christians have always believed this without actually thinking. But I'm gonna present evidence to why they actually need to. This is true. Christians have always thought sexual immorality is wrong and sex before marriage is wrong. This was the last video I did on them. But I am gonna prove today that it is, but with actually using reasoning. And then the guy went back to using Bible verses to prove nothing. And I guess he's gonna do the same today.
and provide an answer to both Christians and skeptics, we will be answering the question, who created God, through 3 points. Point number 1, in order for people to exist, something needs to be eternal. William Lane Craig in his book On
What? In order for people to exist, something needs to be eternal? I don't even understand what you're saying. So I'm just gonna let you finish your point and see whether I even get this.
On Guard talks about Al-Ghazali's idea that you cannot go through an infinite number of events one at a time, and it implies that there needs to be a beginning. Now let me explain. Let's look at this pencil that this student is using. Now, it didn't just pop into existence. This pencil was bought by this student's mother before it was brought to school. But before that, this pencil was in a box being shipped to the store. And before that, the pencil was being manufactured in a factory. And before that, the materials to make pencils were being shipped in trucks. And before that, the materials were being gathered by the workers, and this goes on and on. The idea is that these events are like dominoes, and in the same way that one domino hits another domino and so on, these events cause the next event to happen until the pencil eventually gets to the student using it.
Thus, infinite regress. God is just part of the dominoes.
At school. Now, instead of pencils, let's look at the Christian God of the Bible. Now, someone may ask, well, who created God? And for the sake of building an argument, let's just say that the Christian God and Jesus were created by a greater God. So let's call this God, God 2. So God 2 created Christian God. Nice, problem solved. But actually, another question arises. Who then created God 2? Well, actually, the answer's pretty easy. God 3 obviously created God 2. And this creates a bigger problem. Because if everything needs a cause for its existence, then us as people could never exist. Why?
What? So your argument for God is that it is too good. With the verata we are here means there's an intelligence, a mind that creates everything. A mind that has its own free will to just create. So powerful to just create. That is your argument for God. Now you're saying, even though we're regressing and you're saying the universe is evidence for God. I'm using the Liam Lee Craig argument plus Frank Turek plus other dumb apologetics. I'm saying their arguments are dumb, not them. They're very quite smart people, actually. I'm calling their arguments dumb. So we're going back, based on the idea of the pencil, we're going back and then infinite regress till we get to the heart, to get to the core, to even get to the beginning of the universe. So why would we stop a God?
Let's look at ourselves, the existence of people, as being a domino. And the Christian God who created us, he's the domino before us. And God 2 is the domino before Christian God, and God 3 is before God 2, and so on. Now, if everything always needed a cause for its existence, then there would be an unending or infinite number of dominoes. And if there was an infinite number of dominoes, we couldn't be here because nothing could ever begin. And for people who believe in the Big Bang Theory, this is still a problem. Because let's just say that the Big Bang does happen, the question still arises, How did it start? How did the required materials needed for a Big Bang to happen get there? And even if they did get there, how did those materials get there? No, the very
Okay, so we don't know what was before the Big Bang. And I'm getting over my expertise here because I'm not a scientist after all. But I don't think there were like need for like materials for the Big Bang to happen. I think it was already there. The problem that we have with the idea that there's a God that creates everything is the idea of the infinite regress. You're gonna have that. You're gonna have to answer to that. Christians really are to answer to that idea. The fact that their logic leads to infinite regress, and you can't just say that God is the first cause and say whatever he's saying. His first point is just blinkly dumb. Because if the logic is we're complex, too complex, the universe is too complex for it to just not be made by something, and you put God there, then God is more complex than the universe. Then something has to make God. Thus, we have the infinite regress. So, it doesn't mean humans would not be here. What he's saying does not make any sense.
fact that we are here and alive is proof that someone or something was eternal. Because if everything needed a cause for its existence, then there would be an infinite number of events that would need to happen in order for us to get here. And if there was an infinite...
But isn't that what happened? I mean, we technically can know if there was an author in the event to lead us here, but isn't like bunch of events necessary for? Isn't like the growth of the universe and the Big Bang throughout how the Earth formation, how the Earth forms, the gravity, all the natural law necessary for humans to really be here? If there's any scientists out there like, is what I'm saying making any sense? Isn't all that necessary for us to even be here to begin with? The natural law of the universe. So, yeah, there's necessary things to actually have humans alive, but like there's events that leads to it. It wasn't like we just pop out of nowhere and you know and boom, humans. Like there was a series even after life form on Earth. There was a series of millions of years of evolution to get to us, and we're not even the final product. We're still evolving.
infinite number of events before us, things could never begin. Therefore, in order for us to be here, there needed to...
This does not make sense to me. I don't think it makes sense at all, even.
to be a starting force to push down the first domino.
No, it blatantly just does not make any sense. Just because there's no force or someone or God, let's just say God, just there's no God to push the first dominoes, does not mean that we still don't exist or we won't exist. Like that logic does not follow. Because the argument here, what you're trying to prove here is that God is the one that was before the Big Bang. That's what you're trying to prove. And we're saying we don't know, but if you're saying God is the one that made the universe, then someone had to make God. It's the logic, it's what follows when you present that kind of logic. So it really has nothing to do with whether humans will be here, because we're already here. So we technically can for sure know what events can alter in the, I guess, history of the universe to make sure that we're not here. Like we wouldn't necessarily know that. We don't have another universe to test that out.
Point number 2. The universe can't be eternal. Science tells
I don't think it's eternal either. Scientists agree that it's probably not eternal. It's gonna be like it's gonna keep expanding. I think it's gonna then contrast. There's so many things into this shit. It's amazing, but like it's confusing. I wouldn't say it's confusing. It's complex, and that it takes so much time to study it. And I have watched fascinating videos on this stuff, but like I still don't fully get it. But just because I don't get it doesn't mean I'll say, oh, it has to obviously be God. Which is what Christians do. Even though this guy is trying to articulate it, make it look nice, make it look very, very confusing. At the same time, not making any sense, obviously. It doesn't mean just because we don't know God. That's basically what it says. We don't know what was before the Big Bang, does God. And then we say, well, if it's God and you're saying God makes up the complex universe, then something else has to be God. And you come with these dumb arguments.
us that our universe is actually expanding and that our universe has a limited amount of energy. Now, if our universe is expanding and we were to reverse time, our universe would just be a little bit smaller than it is today. And if we rewinded time over and over again, we would eventually be at a place where the universe started at a single point. In addition to that, think of the energy that's being used in the universe as a fuel tank to a car. If right now our fuel tank is half empty.
Also, please don't even take this seriously. If you really are interested in like how the universe came to be, the idea of the Big Bang, you can do further research. Christian YouTube videos are not the best source for a scientific knowledge or understanding or trying to understand what scientists are even saying. These people, to an extent, lie for a living, lying for the Lord.
Empty, then there needed to be a time in which the tank was actually full. All of that to say, the fact that our universe is expanding right now and has a limited amount of energy that's being used in our solar system and galaxies, all of this points us to the fact that our universe had a beginning and therefore could not be eternal. Point number 3, the God of the Bible.
The Big Bang is where the start of the time, space, and matter came to be. I mean, it's basically the starting point in a sense. The singularity is the starting point in a sense, and we're trying to see and understand it further and know if there was even something before.
Claims to be eternal. Psalm chapter 90, verse 2.
See what I mean? It all comes back to the Bible. And I don't believe your God is the only one that claims to be eternal. Most God have that attribute.
Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. Notice how it says from everlasting to everlasting. What the author of this psalm is saying is that if you start from this infinite period of time here and travel to this infinite period of time over here, God was always there. He had no beginning and has no end. He always was.
Oh, I must mention that these people have no idea what the hell the Big Bang is. They have no idea. I'm talking about the people in the Bible who wrote the Psalms. They have no idea what any of the scientific knowledge that we have today are actually are. So they were just speaking in spiritual terms. They actually don't mean like, oh, God is the one before the Big Bang, is the one after the universe ends. Like, Christians always find a way. Every time the human knowledge expands, to just shove the gods to the places that human knowledge haven't reached yet. And then when they reach that place, they're gonna make the box for their god smaller and shove him there too. I mean, the box just keeps getting smaller over time.
was, always is, and always will be. You see, for people who ask the question,
Explain that. What do you mean always is, always will be, and always is? Explain what you mean by that. What does that mean? What does that even look like?
who created God, they need to know that the God of the Bible is eternal in nature.
Hold on. Every Christian knows that. I'm doing a little bit of generalization here, but I think every Christian know that, and this is kind of an insult. The fact that Christians watch this video is very weird to me. This is kind of like an insult to you all. Like you don't read your Bible or something. Actually, you don't. But you read the cherry pick part. You read the nice part of God saying, "I'm the one before, the one after, and the one like always." Like you read that part, the part of God saying, "I'm all knowing, all powerful." You read that nice part. You read John 3:16. You read the very popular part of the Bible. You just don't read the very dark very dark and weird part where God supports slavery, how God see women as like properties, God make laws that are just blatantly stupid. You don't read those parts. But you do read the part where God says, "I'm eternal, I'm forever, I will always be everywhere." You read those nice parts. So I'll make a general claim that all Christians do know this. So what does this even mean? What are you trying to prove with this video? Because so far you claim something from a unreliable source in the Psalm, and apparently that's supposed to explain to us who created God or if anyone created God. And you're just slapping claims upon claims, smacking attribute to God, saying because he claims he's eternal, is eternal. Because a book claims God is eternal, is eternal. Also, what does that mean?
Which means that time doesn't apply to him because he
Which means that time does not apply.
is the God who created time and is therefore timeless. And the Bible first.
Oh my God. If God created time, if God created the universe, and the universe is so complex, I keep saying this to drill it down. If the universe is so complex, and God created all, then something has to be on God. Because the Christian claim is that it has to be God that created the universe because everything is so special. When you look at the grass and you look at the green grass and you say, this has so much beauty to it. It has to be made by someone. You don't just see a watch in the field of grass and say, "Well, this watch came from biology." No, you say he has a designer. So God has to be the designer of the universe. Then something has to design God. That, like, it's an infinite regress, and that's the logic you said. We have to keep going with the logic. Like, someone has to make God. That's how the logic will keep going. It's infinite dominoes.
Further explains that we as Christians are able to receive everlasting life in God because our God is eternal and capable of giving eternal life through Jesus. So to conclude, to answer the question, who created God, I would consider these 3 points. Point number 1, in order for people to exist, something needs to be eternal. Point number 2,
Wrong.
the universe can't be eternal. And point number 3,
Yeah, nobody said it is. It's just gonna take a very long time before it like expand and then contrast. I genuinely don't know what's gonna happen to the universe. I should probably search that up and expand my knowledge.
3, the God of the Bible claims to be eternal. For people
So I claim to be a god. Am I a god? Like, just because the Bible claims God claims to be eternal. You see how much people are claiming for claims? Like the Bible claims that God claims to be eternal, does not prove that God, once of all, exists to begin with, or God is eternal. These are just claims that have no support on it. But again, Christians don't even know what a good source is.
People who disagree
Most Christians don't know what a good source is. And if they do, they special plead for the Bible and say, well, it's a religious text, it's different. Like no lawyer that is a Christian is going to court and presenting the Bible as the source of why someone should go to jail or not. Like that would be very, very dumb. Like the Bible again is not a very good source for science, for morality, for really a lot of shit.
I would ask, what do you believe is eternal? How do you think we came to be here on Earth? And why do you believe that?
I just this. The question is who created God? This is giving you saying, well, you say God created us, then someone has to create God. If we're so complex that we just can, come through the evolution means, which is evidence now, we can come through the evidence, we can come through, if you're saying we're so complex that we can't develop from evolution, and you put God over that, then something has to also be over God. I think this is where we stop. I didn't thought this was gonna be this long. I just wanna do another video on this guy. His animation is very, very nice. I wish he's not talking about like Christianity and stuff, but his animation is very, very nice. I wish I could animate like this. Anyways, that's it for today. Have a lovely day.